Lord, hear my prayer. Listen to my plea. Answer me in your faithfulness and righteousness. Psalm 143, verse 1. This verse opens the door to a cry that does not come from routine, but from a weary heart that recognizes its need. Have you ever felt like the words choke in your throat because the pain weighs too heavily? That is what David expresses here. A raw plea, without adornment, a sincere cry that pierces the darkness. The psalmist does not rely on his merits, but on God's faithfulness. That is the key. We do not pray because we deserve it, but because we trust in the character of the one who never fails. When we lift up such a prayer at the start of the day, we admit our fragility and declare our total dependence. And here is the strongest detail. God does not despise a broken heart. He does not demand perfect speeches, but sincerity. Perhaps today, more than immediate answers, what you need is the certainty that He is already listening to you.
The enemy pursues me. He crushes me to the ground. He makes me dwell in darkness like those long dead. Psalm 143, verse 3. With these words, David lays bare his inner reality, a sense of persecution, of shadow, and of deep despair. Doesn't that sound familiar? This experience of feeling that your mind is filled with dark thoughts that won't let you move forward? The psalmist admits that his spirit faints, that his heart is dismayed within him. And that confession is powerful, because before receiving help, we need to acknowledge the depth of our struggle. This is not about denying anguish or covering pain with makeup, but presenting it just as it is before God. That sincerity opens the space for divine intervention. When you accept that your soul is wounded, God can begin to restore it. And the strongest part is that the psalm teaches us that we are not alone in the inner battle. Even in darkness, prayer becomes a thread of light that breaks the night and announces hope.
I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all your works and consider what your hands have done. I spread out my hands to you. My soul thirsts for you like a parched land. Psalm 143, 5-6. David shifts his focus. From anguish, he turns to memory. In the midst of darkness, he decides to recall what God has already done in the past. This practice is not a simple mental exercise. It is an act of faith. When you bring to memory miracles, rescues, and answers, your heart grows stronger. The weary mind wants to convince you that nothing will change, but memory becomes a living testimony that God is still the same. Memory is the seed of hope. Do you see it? Remembering is not nostalgia. It is a spiritual strategy, looking back in order to believe in the present. And then comes the strongest gesture. David stretches out his hands like dry land crying for water. That image shows us that prayer is thirst, recognizing its source. When you remember what God has done and lift up your hands, you declare that the same power that worked yesterday is available today.
Answer me quickly, Lord. My spirit fails. Do not hide your face from me. Let the morning bring me word of your unfailing love, for I have put my trust in you. Show me the way I should go, for to you I entrust my life. Psalm 143, 7-8. This cry reflects the anxiety we all know, the sensation that the heart is fading and the soul desperately needs an answer. David does not hide his fragility, and that is the key. Authentic prayer is born out of vulnerability. He asks for mercy at dawn, as one who understands that without that divine voice the day has no direction. Morning is more than an hour. It is the symbol of new beginnings, of clarity after the dark night. And look at the detail. David not only asks for help, he asks for direction, because it is not enough to be comforted, we need to be guided. In this plea, the soul surrenders and confesses, "Lord, without you I am lost. Show me the way." Prayer thus becomes a beacon in the midst of confusion, real rest for the one who chooses to trust.
Rescue me from my enemies, Lord, for I hide myself in you. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. May your good spirit lead me on level ground. Psalm 143, 9-10. This cry is the confession of someone who recognizes their inability to walk alone. David does not ask for a map or a detailed plan. He asks for direction because he understands that without God's voice, his steps will falter. Confusion, visible and invisible enemies, inner doubts, all of this makes life seem like a labyrinth. But here is the difference. When we lift up this prayer, we are not seeking human shortcuts, but the straight path that only the Holy Spirit can show. That level ground is not merely a physical place. It is a state of the heart that rests in obedience and trust. Praying like this each morning is recognizing, Lord, I don't want to be guided by my anxiety or my fears, but by your Spirit that makes my path straight. Prayer then becomes compass, staff, and refuge, reminding us that the only solid ground beneath our feet is where God Himself leads us.
For your name's sake, Lord, preserve my life. In your righteousness, bring my soul out of trouble. In your unfailing love, silence my enemies. Destroy all my foes, for I am your servant. Psalm 143, 11-12. These words are not only a request, they are a declaration of trust in God's justice and power. David understands that deliverance does not come from his military skill, nor from his resources, but from God's character, His name, His righteousness, and His mercy. Here we discover something profound. When we cry out in the midst of anguish, God not only listens, He acts. He strengthens the weak, gives life to the one who feels faint, and confronts forces that seem too great for us. That is victory that transcends the human, because it is not about the battle disappearing, but about the Lord Himself entering it as a faithful warrior. Every deliverance is also a reminder we are His servants, and He defends those who belong to Him. God's justice may seem delayed, but it never fails. With this prayer, we affirm that even when darkness shouts, the Lord's voice has the final word: victory, life, and freedom.
As we close this journey through Psalm 143, we return to the beginning. Prayer as a sincere cry born from a downcast heart, and finding an answer in the God who listens. David began saying, "Hear my prayer, Lord, listen to my plea," and ends declaring victory, direction, and freedom. That is the cycle you too can experience, moving from anguish to rest, from confusion to clarity, from weakness to strength. But wait, the key is not in repeating words, but in surrendering honestly to the Father, convinced that His justice and mercy are at work even when you don't see immediate results. Have you tried surrendering your night, your anxiety, and your future with this trust? What would happen if you made this cry your daily routine? Today, I invite you not to remain only as a listener, but to join in prayer and write your faith down. Write in the comments, "God directs my life," and subscribe to keep growing in these prayers. Because perhaps what you just heard is the answer you have been waiting for.